Russia's humanitarian resolution faced overwhelming opposition at the Security Council. 13 of the 15 member states chose to abstain from the vote. They had criticised the resolution for failing to recognise Russia's role in the conflict in Ukraine. China was the only country to vote in favour of the resolution alongside Russia. The Chinese ambassador told the meeting that they did so in order to encourage the international community to focus solely on the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and to scale up its response. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly reopened an emergency special session on Ukraine to consider two other competing humanitarian resolutions on Ukraine. The first was introduced by Ukraine itself, but had the backing of about 60 other member states. That resolution calls for safe humanitarian access into Ukraine and for the protection of civilians. But it also calls on the General Assembly to recognise the responsibility of Russia for the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, and it calls for Russia to immediately withdraw its troops from the country. Now, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UN introduced that resolution to the General Assembly on Wednesday, saying it was important that Russia be held accountable for its actions. Russia's ambassador to the UN responded to that, saying that it was Ukraine who was responsible for the deaths of civilians. And he said that Ukraine's resolution was full of anti-Russian rhetoric. Now, Russia gave their backing to yet another resolution, this one drafted by South Africa. The South African resolution also calls for safe humanitarian access to Ukraine, but it does not make mention of Russia's role in the conflict. South Africa told the General Assembly that its apolitical resolution was the best way for the UN to reach a consensus on this issue. Now, the emergency special session is set to continue on Thursday at the United Nations headquarters before those resolutions will be put to a vote. Sarah Walton, CGTN, New York.